Hey guys, welcome to I'm Adam Kovic.
And I'm Bruce Greene.
And we're back with more Half-Life news.
But my Half-Life dreams are gone.
I hate to crush them, but here we are. So we're back, and while we fully accepted the game won't come out, a lot of you guys are balls deep in denial. And that's fine. We all deal with grief in different ways.
That's true. Over the weekend, our respective Twitter accounts lit up thanks to a letter written from Valve's Marc Laidlaw to Reddit user /u/what's not in a name.
Right, the response seems to debunk one of the basic tenets of our story. Real quick, if you guys have not seen that episode on Friday, we basically reported that Valve had no intention of releasing Half-Life 3 because they are already earning enough money from their other projects, and releasing the game would open them up to a potential fan backlash.
Right, another part of our story had loose details on the current state of Half-Life 3, mainly that it was script complete, but that it was only operating with a staff of 10.
Laidlaw contradicted that, right, Lawrence?
Yes, he did this in his letter to the Reddit user, What's Not in a Name. He said that, quote, the story doesn't exist as a separate script that is handed off to game designers. Laidlaw went on to promise that, quote, the Half-Life story is really only as good as the game that lets you play it. So yeah, he's basically saying that Valve doesn't operate that way. They don't get like this book of a script and then make a game around that.
Yeah.
Which, okay, fine. We were told by our source that the game had a script that was complete, but that may not mean a literal word-for-word screenplay.
Right.
So it's possible that the source just meant that the loose story beats of the game are finished, but they have yet to start creating assets.
Yeah, in an attempt to rectify this potential misunderstanding, we reached out to Laidlaw to clarify the situation, and he responded. Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Bruce did journalism this weekend.
It was weird. It was really weird.
Blowing my mind. So before we get into it, we want to actually thank Mr. Laidlaw for taking his time to talk with us, mostly Bruce, and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, Laidlaw did specifically call out parts of our story, but didn't or couldn't provide much information in addition to that.
He opened by saying that, quote, I can never report on the state of projects at Valve except in the context of product release publicity. Laidlaw then directly states that, quote, nothing I've heard leads me to believe your source knows anything relevant.
So here he is describing sort of the way they come up with the script, or I think Mark comes up with the script. Quote, we fill our way forward in a way that resembles blind groping, especially in the beginning. I wouldn't even know what a script might contain until we've got a fair bit of gameplay that seems compelling. You have ideas for places, scenes, characters, but they are very rough, sometimes reflected only in emails and conversations. Nothing like a design document or a script. This is my experience anyway. End quote.
Yeah. So he went on to reveal that scripts are only created once games are finished for the purposes of localization.
Yeah, he also directly called out the notion that Valve would be, quote, scared of releasing a game due to fan anticipation, saying, quote, that's the only bit of it I can personally address directly. It is, as I said, silly. So what's he saying there, Lawrence?
Well, I think it comes down to the interpretation of the motivations behind why Valve are making the call in the first place.
Yeah.
One way to say it is that Valve is scared, which implies a certain amount of, I don't know, like immaturity there. Like
Yeah,
you're afraid
fear
of a bully.
or cowardice, right?
Yeah, but we like to think that it's more like they're making a business decision. They're saying that their services work because people believe in Valve. People use Steam because they like Valve. People pay $100 in TF2 for a pair of earbuds because they like Valve.
Yeah.
If they were to release a Half-Life 3, that could hurt their bottom line because people might stop using their services with such abandon. I mean, I'm not going to say Half-Life 3 is going to push people to start using Origin. Not sure anything could do that, but it might result in people being less encouraged to buy trading cards or trade on Valve at all, or just, it might hurt them. So it's not necessarily we're afraid of fans thing, but we need to manage their expectations.
Right.
And sometimes the only way to do that is to not fulfill expectations at all.
Also, when asked directly about Half-Life 3, Laidlaw wouldn't say anything concrete.
So I wrote, quote, if you're blindly groping, does that mean then that Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 2 Episode 3 has not been worked on at all, mainly because there is no gameplay? That's what I wrote. I was basically just trying to get something out of Mark as to what the status of the game's development was.
In response, Laidlaw wrote that, quote, this is the point where even I say no comment.
All right, so what's the deal? Is our source lying, or is Marc Laidlaw lying? I don't know. This might be hard to understand. We believe both of them are actually telling the truth. We don't think anybody's lying.
No.
But they're telling the truth from their perspectives.
Yeah, we know we sound like Obi-Wan right now, retconning the fuck out of the fact that Vader was totally not Luke's dad in A New Hope.
But in the real world, and especially when it comes to something as complicated as games development, two people can have different impressions of the same project based on how they see it.
We'd expect Laidlaw to be more intimately familiar with the status of a possible Half-Life 3, but nothing he said to us proved or disproved his relationship to that game, which, by the way, wasn't confirmed in our conversation with him.
Yeah, now we can't comment specifically on what we perceive the perspective of our source would be. To do that would potentially provide context as to their identity, and we obviously cannot do that.
We still believe that our source's interpretation of a Half-Life 3 project is correct, even if the tone and perspective of the interpretation is different than Laidlaw's.
Yeah, specifically we believe that our source and Laidlaw were using the term, quote, script differently. And on a larger scale, we believe our source is more intimately familiar with a culture change at Valve than Laidlaw may be.
Right, that touches on another aspect of our story that some have called attention to, that Valve management has been shifting employees around.
Right, so Lawrence, what's the deal with this Valve employee handbook?
Yeah, so this was a 2012 Valve Employee Handbook. It supposedly leaked, but once it leaked, Valve just left it out there. It reported that Valve had no management structure at all, that it was a totally flat company, that,
No bosses.
that your desk on wheels, you could push it anywhere you want and work on whatever project you want to at the time.
Right.
So first of all, that was 2 years ago. A lot can happen in 2 years, and we believe, based on what we've heard people that are working at Valve, that even in 2012 that was starting to change.
Yeah.
Now, we don't work at Valve, but we're just putting together a sort of image of what that company's looking like and how it's transitioning based on what we've heard.
Yeah.
Based on these different perspectives from what we've heard our source and others we've talked to while researching the story, we believe that a form of management has emerged at Valve. Sad as it is, a company needs a hierarchy of some sort to divide up responsibilities.
Right, yeah.
Otherwise, you end up wasting a lot of time and money, which may also be happening right now.
Yeah.
So either this management is a quiet pressure, internal pressure for employees to work on profitable projects like Dota 2, or it's an explicit layer of management that is now dividing up people and telling them what to work on.
And right, going back to what we were saying earlier, I know a lot of you have been Bible thumping the 2012 handbook, like it is an actual Bible. But keep in mind, our source is telling us that the culture has changed since 2012, when that handbook came out, with games like Dota and Team Fortress 2 going free to play. That's where it all starts to get really interesting and realistic.
Yeah, the company is very large, and again, I think it's like you said, management sort of emerges, whether or not they like it. It's just sort of, like somebody's, that doesn't mean they're really a bad boss or
Right.
something like that. Valve sounds like an awesome place to work at, but there is kind of always somebody saying, hey, we got a deadline you got to hit, and that, which is not a big deal.
No.
But given that the story relies on different perspectives, we'd like you to rely on more than just our interpretation of Laidlaw's correspondence.
You can find the entire transcript of the conversation that we had with Mr. Laidlaw in the video description below.
In it, he makes some powerful statements about league culture and levels of respect between consumers and artistic creators. So thank you again for your time, Mr. Laidlaw. I really appreciate it. I spent all day yesterday emailing with him, and he's just a really, really nice guy. So.
And like we said before, we'd like to be wrong about this. Believe us, we're not excited that a game is not going to come out that we've been anticipating for 10 years.
Yeah.
We'd like to wake up tomorrow and see Half-Life 3 just waiting for us on Steam, but sadly, I don't think it's going to happen for a very long time.
Yeah, so please like and subscribe for more of us on the set of Transformers 6.
Michael Bay's back there doing cocaine.
Or broken dreams in more ways than one.